After the alarming events at today's meeting to announce the new Lord Cardinal of House Prydon, NGPR caught up with Lord President and Commander Deimos for a private interview. I'd like to thank Lord President Sen and Lord Miraflex for agreeing to speak to New Gallifrey Public Record so soon after the shocking events at tonight's council meeting. So, Lord President, I'm very happy to see that you are so recovered and in good fettle. A very promising regeneration. Perhaps you and Lord Miraflex could run me through the events of the council meeting, which were somewhat chaotic.
If you'll forgive me, since the entity, shall we say, has chosen to take my name, then I will be reverting, I think, to a name I have used previously, a name that I used during the war. I would be appreciative if you would forget the previous name that I've been known by and refer to me as Deimos.
Very well, Lord Deimos.
That would be Commander Deimos.
Thank you, Commander Deimos. Perhaps you could run me through the events of this evening?
Oh, I'd be happy to, Saffia. Thank you for having me on. Well, this was an interesting one, wasn't it? I wasn't expecting quite to end up like this. Well, this evening was supposed to be me just basically sitting back and enjoying things while Judy nominated her replacement as Cardinal of House Prydonian. It's nice for once to not have to organize everything. I figured I could sit back and watch everyone run around in their robes and look important, you know. After all, it was a Prydonian ceremony, so I figured there'd be a lot of posturing and pontificating.
And you know those never go entirely to plan.
It seems as though whenever someone shows up dressed in red, one of us ends up spilling some. At any rate, I knew partway through there was something wrong. As you all know, I'm kind of part TARDIS myself, and I can commune with other time capsules, speak with them in a way that regular Time Lord can't. It's like I heard someone arriving, but I knew it wasn't right. I'd felt this presence before, but never in SL space. I'd only ever felt this presence when I was communing with other capsules. And so I knew this was not going to go well. What I did not expect was for Deimos here to step out body armor with a gun, start taking pot shots at everyone in the room. It was certainly not on the agenda.
Well, if you'll forgive me for saying so, it wasn't necessarily on my agenda when I got up this morning either.
I don't think you remember very much about the last quite a few mornings you've gotten up, if I dare say. At any rate, I've learned recently that I can tap into that TARDIS side of me if I really need to. It's exceptionally draining and difficult to do so. But I was able to tap into some power to hopefully defend the council room. Unfortunately, it seems as though Deimos here was able to tap into the same kind of power. And basically what we had was two TARDISes battling it out with each other in normal space, which should never happen. I was able to hold him, I suppose is one word you can use for it. Pardon me for struggling here, but describing events when I was sort of extra dimensional is not easy. I was able to hold him, and I realized I had an opportunity at that point to at least push off the entity that was trying to take him over and maybe still save Deimos at the same time. So I basically ripped him away from his TARDIS. I hope I got all of him, although I have the suspicion that maybe parts of him were left behind. And here we are. We have a thing after us, and we have Deimos and me in a new body sitting here on the couch speaking with you, Saffia.
Commander Deimos, how much do you actually remember of the last few weeks, and what is your last clear memory before the entity seemingly took you over?
Well, my last clear memory isn't something that will be appropriate to discuss on the videocast, I'm afraid. But it would appear that there has been something of a haze for some period of time.
So what about the videos that you issued recently, the Prydonian Gambit and the Miraflex Memorandum?
Well, obviously the videos are rather embarrassing. Not what I would consider my best work by any stretch of the imagination. And, well, at least based on what I've been shown before coming in here as part of my the small amount of briefing that I've been able to receive. I did have a chance to look at the so-called Miraflex Memorandum, however, and oh dear, I don't know who wrote that, but please, really. Yeah, no.
Commander Deimos, how did you feel when you learned that you had attempted to assassinate not only the Lord President, but also the ex-Lord Chancellor?
Well, it's embarrassing, to say the least, to wake up from this sort of experience and discover you've tried to shoot two of your friends, let alone the fact that you've hit them. I'm told that former Chancellor Sputnik is in good health and recovering well, and indeed has maintained his, well, how do I put it, exceptionally well balanced temperament, something for which I can only applaud and salute him. And indeed my dear friend the Lord President here, embarrassed to say the least. It's not the first time I've been responsible for a new face on this friend of mine, and yes. Well, I guess I owe them both a very, very good bottle of something.
I would prefer a Scottish ale or a pale ale, if you wouldn't mind.
No, just the place. We'll get you sorted.
Thank you.
If that creature that showed up wasn't Commander Deimos, what was it?
Okay, this is difficult, but I will do my best to explain. As any Time Lord knows very well, Time Lord and their capsule share a very special telepathic bond, but it's more of an emotive bond than a literal form of communication. A TARDIS can't simply come into our dimension, sit down at the table, and have a beer and chat with the Time Lord that pilots it. That would be nice. As a matter of fact, it would make our lives as Time Lords much, much easier because, of course, our TARDISes can see everything. They see all of time and all of space, which is why I exist. Rassilon created me as a bridge between the hearts of the TARDISes and the Time Lords who pilot them. A TARDIS with a supercomputer so advanced that it would allow the Time Lords to telepathically bond with their capsules and see all of creation. Rassilon was nothing if not dramatic.
Oh.
Indeed. But for the rest of us who simply have a TARDIS and a pilot, that bond is maintained at a sacred distance. You know, we claim to be the most advanced beings in the universe, but the bottom line is we're still flesh and blood. We just happen to get a few more cracks at the whip than most other races do. But that's really about it. Our brains cannot physically handle seeing all of time and space. It would kill us. Unless, of course, you happen to be an officer in a certain house that was experimenting with elixirs of Karn, as the good commander here decided that it would be an eminently brilliant idea to drink said elixir and then look into the heart of his TARDIS.
Oh, with all due respect, sir, I'm not entirely convinced we can call that entirely my own decision.
Well, there is that. Of course, there's the fact that a TARDIS exists outside of time and space, so once your TARDIS became corrupted and mixed up with your own consciousness, in a sense, it had always been such, as it exists outside of time, so we have ourselves a very interesting chicken and the egg scenario there. Even though I discovered this while in communion with other TARDISes, I'm not entirely sure I understand which came first. But suffice it to say that some of the early experiments by what is now the Sisterhood resulted in one of our own children, one of our TARDISes, taking over its pilot. A level of bonding between the two that should have never happened without an intermediary, such as the computer in my TARDIS. When the two minds touched, they became instantly corrupted. Ambition, power, and the ability to see all of creation should never mix without some sort of referee. And now we have this thing, which evidently calls itself the Abbot, although what level of consciousness and intelligence it actually has, I'm not entirely certain of. There you go.
So it is a kind of combination of the commander and his TARDIS, but separate now from both of them?
Yes, I was able to rip him away and prevent him from regenerating, but I suspect that pieces of him left behind that had begun regenerating are now some kind of strange, organic, telepathic mashup with what's left of his TARDIS. I got a couple of good looks in on it, and I'm pretty sure that it's heavily damaged.
What about your TARDIS, Commander? Has that survived?
I'm afraid I'm not in a position to confirm or deny or indeed comment on that at this time.
Something else that you referred to during the events earlier this evening was that the Jinn had played a part in protecting the High Council and the Time Lords. Could you possibly comment on whether the Jinn will appear to us?
Well, how shall I put this? I don't think the Jinn is something that people need to worry about, in the sense that some people have been portraying him. I can tell you that I have read the confidential briefing document issued by a certain section of the government that refers to the Jinn, and no, he's not a threat to us.
Can I ask whether the Jade Dreamers are incorrect then, being concerned about the Jinn?
I do not feel it would be appropriate to comment on that at the present time. As I said, the confidential briefing document that I have read indicates that the Jinn himself is not something about which we need to be overly concerned.
Commander Deimos, your reassurances are one thing, but given the fact that until very recently you were incarcerated by this enemy, is it not possible that you yourself are still a security risk?
Sir?
I think I can probably speak to that. I got a bit more of an insight into the commander and his TARDIS and the thing that was left behind than I really ever cared to. I'm sort of able to look into their minds and see everything that was going on. What we have left with us is the man that I used to trust greatly, and trusted with another one of my lives. Thank you for that once again. I suspect now, looking back, that perhaps that was when it all began. But the man who was involved in those events some time ago was trustworthy, and I believe we have him back, having seen inside his mind at the moment of death. I feel pretty assured of that.
Can I ask what you feel can be done about a rogue TARDIS?
Well, I suppose we could ask it nicely to stop being so mean. Aside from that, I think the best we can hope for here is containment. There have been a lot of people working on this for a long time. I'm not comfortable yet sharing what preparations we have made, but there have been a lot of them. Today did come as somewhat of a surprise, but I knew that today would happen. Not exactly when.
Do you suspect that there may be more than one out there?
No. I can sense capsules. I can commune with their hearts. I knew about this being from the moment we came to SL space. I didn't know what it was. I didn't know how to perceive it, but I've known about it since the very beginning. It was the old House Prydonian, now known as the Jade Dreamers, that helped focus what I could see, so that at least we could be prepared for today, even if we didn't know exactly when it was going to happen. There is not another one.
So, can I ask what steps will be taken next?
That's classified.
Thank you, Commander. I think the first thing we need to do is to start trusting the Dreamers. While, as Commander Deimos said, we can't tell you exactly what plans are being made, I can share with you a bit of what plans have already come to fruition. And Lady Karma and the House of Jade Dreamers, while I will freely admit that the Prydonians, old and new, have been a major thorn in my side as the president, we would not be here without them. Their efforts to restore the art of the seers is the only reason why we were able to prepare for today. As a matter of fact, Lady Karma herself gave me an elixir because she knew that I would die today. I chose to give that elixir to the commander here instead. But they have been essential in helping us.
Well, I have to say I'm very grateful. I hate to lose his chiseled jaw, and you've actually come out pretty well.
Yes. Beginning to wonder. That chiseled jaw has been around an awfully long time. I think maybe it's time you took one for the team yourself there, Deimos.
When the time comes.
So what will happen to you now, Commander?
Well, that's an excellent question. My cover's pretty thoroughly blown as far as my embedding within the Prydonian chapter as was. As of now, I guess it's up to the president. I just hope he doesn't have me shot.
Well, I think it's pretty obvious here that myself and Lady Karma and Commander Deimos have been working together for quite some time, along with other members of the Inner Council, to ensure that while today was a bit of a mess, at least we all came out of it with new lives. New Gallifrey still stands. We move on from here. It's pretty obvious, I think, to everyone at this point that there have been other players working on this from behind the scenes, and the title of Commander Deimos goes to him now, as we are all well aware of him being an agent of the Celestial Intervention Agency, which has come with us here to SL Space. This is a very controversial organization on the old Gallifrey and N Space, and again, I'm sure that revealing its existence here will be equally controversial. However, I would like everyone to keep in mind that without Commander Deimos spearheading this operation, when we learned of the existence of the Abbot quite some time ago, it's very likely that we would have a collapsed Panopticon, a burning New Gallifrey, and the Abbot with access to the most powerful power source in the known universe. So, let's be careful how harshly we judge the CIA or the Jade Dreamers who worked with them on this project.
Lord President, Commander Deimos, thank you for this interview. This is Saffia Widdershins reporting for the New Gallifrey Public Record.